Hey everybody, and welcome back to another week at Beyond the Trailer Park. Just before we get started, just a quick word. We've lost a fellow podcaster today, and we're not going to get into it too deep right now because really we don't know much of anything. But those of you in the podcaster community probably know who we're talking about, and our condolences go out to the families involved, and especially the kids who now have no parents. So our best wishes from all of us at Beyond the Trailer Park for sure. So sorry to start things off sort of on a down note, but we wanted to send our wishes. But anyway, joining us from the wilds of Pennsylvania as usual. Good evening, Beth.
Good evening.
And over from the equally wilds of Mississippi. Good evening, Miss Morgan.
Good evening.
And Tracy's under the weather this evening, so we'll send our wishes and hope she feels better soon. She's kind of miffed because, as you all may know, last week we were supposed to be talking with Corvus Nocturnum of the Church of Satan, and unfortunately, not only was he stuck in traffic and unable to make it to the show, he actually had a car accident while he was stuck in traffic. He's okay. He's totally fine. But his car is kind of messed up, and he does have a GoFundMe going on. Yeah. So because he does speeches and travels full time, so it's kind of his livelihood. So what's his full name, Beth, that the GoFundMe's under?
His quote real name is Eric Werner. He goes by on Facebook, and I'll post another link to his GoFundMe.
Okay.
And if you can help, that's great. If you can't, that's fine. If you could share it, it'd be great. And his vehicle is basically his livelihood because he is a traveling speaker as well as an artist, and he is also an Eric for 70. So I do have a little bit of history with him, and he's a really sweet guy, very laid back.
Yeah.
But yeah, he texted me and let me know he was running late. Didn't hear him, and the next morning I get this message I was in an accident, and I'm like, holy shit. So yeah. But he and the driver are okay, but it was his vehicle that was trashed.
That's
$1,000 in damages. Yeah, it sucks, but he's okay, so that's the main thing. But yeah, I'll post that again later tonight.
Excellent. Okay, sounds good.
With us next week.
Yeah. And the good thing is that he will be back next week, so that's definite bonus for us. And my apologies to anybody who's getting this on on Spreaker later. I had a technical blurb, but I just fixed it. But I've been able to get the system to do the live streaming again, thankfully. So there is that. But it seems to be working now. So fingers crossed, people.
But do you have the record button on, my dear?
No, actually, I don't. Jeez. This is what happens when your day gets all discombobulated. But I do now. Thank you.
Yes.
Anyway, joining us all the way from the lovely Isle of Ireland. Good evening, Pete Giffiths.
Good evening, girls. It's a pleasure to be here with you again. You're looking good.
Oh, we try. Actually, I'm looking better. I had a procedure done on my eyes recently, and last week my right eye looked like I was the spawn of Satan. It was quite
fitting.
It was good to have it when Corvus was here, but oh well, it's up now. What are you gonna do? But yeah, and I know we've got our friend Mark over in the chat there. So hi, Mark. Good to almost see you. Don't get to
Hi,
see
Mark.
more because he moved, but I still talk to you. And yeah, Pete was saying you guys actually haven't met, but at least not in person. But neither of we met Pete either in person. But that's okay,
True.
'cause we have the magic of the internet. So there's that.
Magic.
Magic, woo! And we don't need any e-meters for that shit, right?
I don't have one, so.
You know what? I totally want one because I totally think I could beat it. I really do. I'm
I
hoping I
think
get my husband to build one, I think.
perhaps there might be more and more for sale as time goes on that you could pick up pretty cheaply.
Well, the last time I looked, the only place there were several stores selling them on eBay. I could tell that they were all run by Scientologists because the prices were astronomical. And just reading the ads, like the auctions, you could tell. I'm like, yeah, this is a Scientologist. Like somebody who's trying to sell them to other Scientologists.
It's like a Scientologist surplus store.
Yes, exactly. So I haven't looked in probably a year. Maybe I should take a look again because I really want to get one and play with it. But
If I find one, I shall keep it for you.
oh, thank you. That'd be awesome. Yeah, because I think like I found the schematics online because Hubbard patented them, and there's like all the drawings and everything. And I think my husband probably could build one. It's like where the time, because there's always 5 million projects around the house that need to get done. So.
Well, hopefully he doesn't quite do the wham bam thank you ma'am job he did on your mic stand.
Oh no, that wasn't a wham bam. He spent hours on that thing, so I kind of felt bad.
You'll have to excuse me. Somebody came up to say hi.
Hello, Zorro kitty.
This is Zorro. Zorro is not a kitten no more.
No.
Well, technically he is, but he's giant.
And yes, he's a giant, 8.73 pound giant. And 7 months old.
7 months old. Shit.
Yeah. Damn. If he grows into his paws, I'm in deep, deep trouble.
Oh, Mark,
deep trouble. I can barely pick him up now. You gotta get down, you little monster. No.
Mark was saying, you could get one for the low, low price of $5,000. I think I saw some for like but then he said you can also get a special editions for up to $25,000.
Jesus Christ.
Is that like
aren't e-meters like lie detectors?
Yes.
Kind of, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they're about as reliable as lie detectors then?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Or worse.
Half the time.
It's like they've taken half the technology that goes into a polygraph, and that's what's used in e-meter.
Yeah, I think if you look at the history of the e-meter, it's quite fascinating because Hubbard was using them in the early 1950s, but they were actually developed by someone called Volney Matheson, and it's well worth looking into him because that guy was using them after he'd left Hubbard and Scientology. Hubbard stopped using them, and in the 1950s came out in a lecture and said, we don't use e-meters anymore. We've got something better than that. But 2 years later, some guys built one and called it the Hubbard electropsychometer, and that's when they started using them again. They do nothing. The truth is they do absolutely nothing. But they use it like a lie detector, definitely.
Well, see, I think it would be hilarious.
Kind of like the bomb detectors in Iraq or Iran. I can't remember which.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that kind of what do they call that effect that makes it work? I can never remember the name of it, but it's psyche something or other.
Is it like the divining rod kind of thing?
It is. It's exactly the same thing. Yeah.
Divination. Okay.
That thing. Yeah.
I would love to get one and practice so I could make it float you know.
Yeah. It's called the ideomotor effect.
Yeah. And then I want to go to like some random org that that I would never know who I was or anything, and just be like, oh, can I take your stress test? And you know, oh yeah, I'll try your e-meter, and then just like make it float no matter what.
Isn't that how Ouija boards work?
Same thing, exactly.
Is that same effect of yeah, because I remember reading something about that.
Yeah, dowsing is the same thing. Detecting hidden weapons, hidden gold, you name it, it can find it.
Well, now Joseph Smith had better luck with a rock and a hat for hidden.
He did, yeah. Yeah, golden tablets for everyone.
Yes. Woo! I understand they'd be awfully heavy to drag around, though. I think the Xenu papers are a little more portable.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hey, now if you put the Xenu papers in gold, you could start a whole new religion, like Mormon Scientology.
Or it could be like David Icke and his monoatomic gold lizard people.
Oh, God.
Throw that in there.
Yeah, Mark says they'd flip out if I had a constant floating needle. I'm like, that's the point, my friend.
Yeah.
So you've had an interesting time of late, Pete. So you just had a great turnout in a court case. You want to tell us?
I did, yeah. It took 3 years, which I'd like to have back sometime, but I don't think I'm going to get them. It was interesting. It certainly was. It's even more interesting to actually beat Scientology in a court case, because that's pretty unheard of. And to beat them in 2 is, again, it's quite an achievement to do that. It's not all down to me. I don't know anything about the law. I had a legal team, and I got great advice from a lot of different people. And I followed that advice, and, you know, that stood me in good stead. At the end of the day, there's nothing more gratifying than to have a judge basically say, yep, I believe you. You're the guy that's the straight up honest guy. And all these others, So
part of it was you had been basically banned from having any sort of contact with any Scientologist.
That's right. That's right. It started off when I actually tried to sue a Scientologist for defamation, because I give talks in schools and colleges, and I'd been to one, and they sent an email to that school basically defaming me, saying that I was all these terrible things. Now, if you sue Scientology, it's their policy to try and sue you twice as hard. So that's what they did, yeah. Just before Christmas, 2014, they went to the High Court. And
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. And got an injunction basically restraining myself and John McGee from looking at them, picketing. Oh, the list went on. I've never seen so many verbs in one paragraph. It just went on and on and on. I couldn't approach them, video them, photograph them, look at them, watch them. So basically, it stopped me from doing anything that involved a Scientologist. But not just me, my agents, anybody working on my behalf. So because it was so such a sweeping, it was terrible.
Go to this protest and snap a few pictures for him.
Right. Well, almost straight away, 2 people tried to go protest, and one of them was John McGee, who's already named on the injunction, but one of them was a girl who wasn't named on the injunction, and the Scientologist ran down the stairs and gave her a copy of the injunction, told her she was served, and then called the police, who threatened to arrest them if they didn't leave the area, which is kind of ironic, because in court, the Scientologist said, well, the injunction's not there to stop you protesting, but that's exactly what they used it for. And there you have Scientology in action. They say one thing, but they do another. And I had 3 years of seeing this at close hand, so I know exactly what they can do. It was interesting. Now, we couldn't deal with the injunction until we dealt with the other cases, and as you probably know, these things take time. So it's taken 3 years. It's only 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I think, since I got the final judgment on and got the injunction removed, and then we had to have a costs hearing as to who pays for all of this, and I won that as well. So, you know. Now, all we have to do now is get some money from the Scientologists, and it usually works the other way around. But there you go.
Yeah.
That could be difficult.
Satisfying enough to basically get to tell them to go piss off, but even more if you can make them have to pay for it, the pleasure.
Exactly. Yeah. Now I can say to them with hand on heart, "Give me my fucking money."
Yeah. It's slightly different in America because usually, even if you're suing, then usually it's each party has to pay their own costs.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But unless there are some laws that require you to pay attorney's fees, and if you do egregious conduct, like basically a frivolous suit, then you have to pay the attorney's fees. But usually the rule is both parties have to pay.
That's it. Yeah.
Side.
Well, I'm kind of glad you're here, Morgan, to hear this, because we had 3 cases. Now, initially they were separate, but the Scientologists wanted to have them heard together. And we, like my legal guys, couldn't think of a reason why not. So we agreed to that. So we essentially had 3 cases. We lost 1 and we won 2. So we get costs for 2. They get costs for 1, and then I get costs for appealing the injunction. So I think on balance, I might be ahead. I don't know, but it's over, and it's such a relief to have something like this be over. You know, I can move on. You know, I can stop thinking about it, because certainly, like the appeal on the injunction was 2 days. And after the first day, which was then basically attacking me in court and trying to portray me as some kind of monster, and then the next day was me sort of like stating my case. But that night, I didn't sleep. You know, I mean, it takes a toll. It takes a toll on you. And I think people who've never been in court fully realize, you know, just how awful it can be and how stressful it is. It's not like watching, you know, 12 Angry Men on TV or something, you know?
Yeah, it's not. So I have always been fascinated with the Scientologist lawyers because, they are just very interesting to me, because it seems to be that they are this sort of undefeatable force, but no one really knows exactly why.
Yeah, well,
I'm guessing influence and money.
Well, yes. Well, you see, the whole system works slightly differently in the UK and Ireland. What we had was the Scientology solicitor, which is like a lawyer to you guys. His name's Peter Hodkin. And this guy has been to the European courts. This guy's achieved some massive victories. In addition to him, they had a special Scientology legal advisor called Massimo Angius, and he was giving advice. But they can't talk in court. Everyone has to talk in court through a barrister who addresses initially the judge, and then they take turns interviewing any witnesses. So it's kind of convoluted, but I think it works out at the end of the day. But yeah, the Scientology people, I mean, one of them was actually shaking in court at one point. Another one looked like, it was unbelievable. You know, I mean, he looked nervous. The legal advisor at one point, he looked like he was ill. It was just fascinating to watch them and all the things they went through. I didn't look myself, but my friend who was with me did. And when the judgment came in, they were sat there shaking their heads, you know, no. But it was good.
What I think is interesting when I look at the different court cases between the U.S. and the UK, especially Peter's case, because I've been kind of following it, is that here in the U.S. we seem to treat Scientology and any religion with kids' gloves when it comes to the law, whereas over in Europe, obviously specifically Ireland, UK, but they don't seem to give them that deference. Like I know in some instances, not specifically Scientology, they have gone over these cult cases like there's no tomorrow, where here in the US they're, oh, well, we have to get more, more evidence or some that, but that doesn't seem to be the case over with you, and I think that's a better way to approach it. I mean, I'm biased, of course, but...
Well, I think the stumbling block is the First Amendment, to be honest, but there you go.
Yeah.
And also recognizing Scientology as a religion, which of course we all know it really isn't. So if we can just get the IRS to pull the plug or pull the rug or whatever it is they're standing on, then maybe we'll get some action in that area. In this country, they're a business. They are a business, and that's it.
Now, are they considered a religion or a business? You said business?
Yeah,
okay.
They're absolutely
a business. See, I think that...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Mark made a good a point here that I didn't know. He said that most of the Scientology lawyers are Mormons.
Ooh, really? Wow.
Huh. Yeah. Because I know there's that one big guy out in LA who does all of the Kendrick Moxon.
Kendrick Moxon, yeah.
And but yeah, for some reason that makes kind of sense. I guess they would come from the Brigham Young.
Probably.
Yeah.
He also says that in Canada, Scientology is also a business without charitable status.
That's right, exactly, yeah.
Then I hate our country. For many reasons, but that's one.
You have to change it. That's all you have to do,
Yeah. Well, first they have to get rid of who, and then start again.
Well, what's kind of bizarre about that is who we know as Dayglow Man. He's actually petitioned to have the IRS pull their religious status.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Personally, I mean, I've only kind of precursory led, but my gut instinct tells me it's because he sees them as competition.
Possibly.
He's all for money, and he finds that in some instances Scientology competes with him on a business level.
Sure.
And that's been the suspicion why he wants the 503c. C3 status pulled from them, is because he sees them as competition. But then again, you're talking to a man who is saying that the Access Hollywood tapes of him using his pussy grabber line is fake. So.
Oh really? I didn't hear that one.
So, it came out today. But so take that as you may, as far as how serious he is about it, pulling Scientology.
It may also be this, it's because Trump is incredibly petty. It might be that he just doesn't like somebody that's really high up in the Scientology and wants to strike back at them. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them, but they still need their religious status taken.
Himself.
Yeah, I mean, I would not be shocked if there was some kind of weird history there. There seems to be a weird history of him and basically anybody who's been of relevance in the 80s to 90s. But but yeah, I would like to see them get their status removed. But I think maybe some of the other concerns is that these other groups, I mean, such as the Mormon Church, might be concerned about that.
Possibly,
what that might lead to.
Well, it raises the question, like, should any religion be given that kind of status? And I don't know. I mean, I think there's a thing in the UK whereby they assess the charitable status. And I know, like I've seen some of the documentation that the Scientologists have sent in to prove that they deserve charitable status. And I know it's just fake. It really is fake news in that case. I think New Zealand also had a similar inquiry, and it's a kind of it's a safety net, isn't it, to prevent fraud and misuse of the system. But we know Scientology totally abuses the system. I mean, Miscavige spent money on private detectives following his father around the place. I mean, Surely that can't be part of it. That is not charitable activity in any way at all, is it? You know, I mean,
and the fact that they buy up all of this real estate all over
yeah,
and then most of it just sits there doing nothing for literally decades until they get around to, oh, well, yeah, I guess we should put some offices in there or something.
yeah. The whole thing's a dreadful scam. I would like to see it certainly change. I don't think you can completely eradicate Scientology from the earth because it's too far. I mean, all those books are just not going to go. And I'm really against burning books when it comes down to it, you know. Yeah. I think people should be allowed to read them and make up their own mind. And I think that should always be the case. And if everyone has the information they should have and still wants to be a Scientologist, good luck to you, buddy, you know.
enjoy that.
Enjoy, yeah.
So now you get to go to your first protest in several years soon.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I'm looking forward to it. And one of the things I'll be watching out for is any traps that might be set, because all I've got to do is break a law or step out of line and they'll probably try and get me back in court. So I'm going to be really careful. I must say that's just in Ireland. I've been to protests in other countries, and of course the law doesn't apply there because it's just Irish law. So I could happily come to Canada.
Well, at some point, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we have a new org building that went up in well, it was purchased in Guelph, which is
Guelph.
Yes, Guelph. I know weird. It's spelled Guelph.
Is this like the org is in the Sea Org?
No, well, it's the Scientology bought a building.
I think it is a Sea Org. I think it is a Sea Org one, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
I think like they're saying it's just like offices, like it's not like go there and take a stress test or anything.
They have so many offices, so much paperwork.
Oh, yeah.
But they had an opening recently, and I know there was a protest then. I didn't get to go to that. But they're having another protest there in like 3 weeks, I think.
Right. Yeah.
I'm planning to attend that. So that
you should get a job there on the inside and like record what they do, and then maybe you could get an e-meter.
Yeah. I have planned. I would like to, because there's an org in Cambridge, which is also about 20 minutes from me. And I wanted to do the stress test. You can take the test online, but they make you physically go to the org in order to get your results, which are going to be pretty much the same for everyone, I think. Which is why they could probably do that. They're like, oh yeah, you have X problem and we can help you. So I was thinking about doing that because I actually bought a hidden camera. And I've actually been planning to do that. Just right now, I've been having some issues with eyesight, and I'm not comfortable driving just yet. I don't feel like I have quite the clarity of vision I should have to do that. So I have not done that, but I would like to very much. Now, if I go to Guelph, they might figure out who I am. I don't know, but we'll see. I mean, the worst that could happen is I go there and they say, get out of here. At which point I give my hidden camera to someone else and send them in for me. That's my long-term plans anyway.
They could be listening in, you know.
I know. Hi, Osa.
She doesn't have a camera. She doesn't.
I don't. Well, you don't know where it would be, though. That's the thing.
Where? Okay, I'm not going to ask the next question.
Anyway,
I
think we're all on the same line.
I went into the org in Tokyo with a GoPro attached to my chest,
Yep.
And they spotted the red light flashing on and off and mentioned it. So I said, "Oh, that's Standby," you know, and they bought it, you know. So I just carried on filming, and it was fun. You know, I got to talk to one, and you know, it was lovely. A very nice experience.
I saw that video. It was.
Oh, cool! All right.
I creep your YouTube. You know that.
That's okay. That's what it's there for.
Exactly. But you put up some interesting stuff, you know.
Well, thank you.
Well, I think it's a service what you and others like you do, that we're in not just Scientology, but any of the cult-like groups that eat things that, you know, people like Deb and I and Morgan don't see every day. I deal with the batshittery of the Christian right, but you deal with the nut jobs of Scientology, and I think it's important little glimpses that we do get from, you know, but from Mormonism, from.
I'll be honest with you, Beth. I'd rather deal with Scientology than the Christian right. That's for sure.
Part of me kind of agrees with you there. It's like, yeah, I just find religion or religious belief just so insidious, and it's. I shake my head every day wondering how the hell, one, I got messed up with it in the first place, two, how I stayed with it as long as I did, and then how the hell I got out of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I did this all pre-internet. I mean, you know, internet for me back then was bulletin boards. And, you know, we didn't have things like AOL or, you know, Facebook was probably... Christ, I don't even know if Zuckerberg was even born when I started the internet. It just, now it's like I can look up anything I want, and I do shake my head wondering how the hell, you know, I got out. And I'm not even that deep. Don't think I was as deeply indoctrinated as some other people that I know that were really into it. I mean, Rebecca Murphy comes to mind. She was a guest couple months ago that we had on, who or Wendy Marshman. I mean, they dealt with the quiverful and the patriarchy and all that crap, and that's why I think that I call them stations, but your YouTube channel and the SPSRS, you know, I think those type of groups are so important, getting the information out so people can take a look and see, well, this is what I went through. This is what you're going to experience.
Yes.
Yeah, well, thanks.
They decide for themselves whether, you know, this is what they want to do. But to I'm pretty sure everybody's seen the meme where religio fascist is saying, oh, you shouldn't take children to gay rights rallies because, you know, yada, 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 yada. And one of the responses back was, well, you shouldn't take children to church because of indoctrination. And that's the thing. I think these types of groups, like, you know, SPSRS, for instance, are so important because we're able to see for ourselves. But children can't see this, and I think that's where, you know, we as a group, you know, regardless of what our religious backgrounds are, and I think that's where what we do is so important, is that, you know, it's fine if an adult wants to choose NIVX or Scientology or Mormonism or whatever, but a child should not be forced into it.
I have to agree with that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and some of the things that I've been seeing, like I've been following Scientology in the aftermath ever since it came out. I've watched it religiously.
Yeah, same here.
One of the things that gets me is like what happened to a lot of the kids in there, and even like Mike Rinder, who was like at the top of the heap, he didn't even know some of the stuff that was happening.
Yeah,
that just it, you know, it's amazing that people get away with this stuff in the name of quote religion or whatever you want to call it, but it just
I think in the past, if somebody escaped from Scientology, they were just glad to get away and never mention it ever again. And even now, I think 95% of those that do never ever speak out. And it is just a few people that do, but I'm glad that they do and write books I love the support that comes from what I'm going to call never-ins, people who weren't in any kind of a cult, but they show fantastic support for those who were. And, you know, without that, what would you call it? It's like a groundswell of support. Leah's show, The Aftermath, is definitely adding to that. And also, like the Underground Bunker, Tony Ortega's blog, Mike Rinder's blog, there's just so much going on that gets more and more people supporting. I mean, okay, I'll be straight with you. I couldn't have actually gone to trial if it wasn't for Never-Ins helping to fund me pay my lawyers, you know, because we reached a point where we had what the lawyers felt was a fairly good case, but when they countersued, it changed the picture completely. And I had to basically pay them to continue through the courts. I could have walked away, but then would have lost everything. So I'm glad that I really stuck it out. Yeah. And I am so grateful for all those never-ins and anybody who contributed to my legal fund, because that enabled us to go to the next step. I was terrified that I wouldn't be able to do it, you know.
Because then if you end up not being able to proceed mainly just because of funds, that means they win, and that they know that they can just silence people by throwing a bunch of
That's right. That's right. John Atack apparently, sorry?
I was going to say, in regards to Leah's show and how important the never-ins, as you call them, are, I live in a really, really small town. I mean, there's towns smaller and there, you know, obviously towns bigger. But I had one of my coworkers, and this was, I think, during the first season of Leah's show, ask me about Scientology. I know enough that I can get myself in trouble. As I said, I am geared more towards the BS of the religious right. But here's somebody in a small town who caught part of Leah's show, who's now hooked. But if it wasn't for shows like Leah's, we would never know.
Yeah.
And, you know, she was saying, you know, how fucked up this religion really is. Yeah. Now, she's a nominal believer as far as Christianity goes. And I say nominal in the sense, okay, she believes, she doesn't know why she believes, she's not really thought about it. She doesn't go to church or anything like that. But, you know, and I said, you know, the bullshit that's being passed off in Scientology is also being passed off in mainstream religions. Now, I don't get into it too much with her because we're at work, and I separate the two. My personal life stays my personal life, but you know, that's how important this kind of stuff is, because if it's hitting her, who is not very worldly, so to speak, you know, if it's hitting other people, these never ends, like you said, are so important to, you know, fighting this bullshit.
Well, it's like the group I just joined, Ontario Against Scientology, that's run by a never-end who watched the show and went, holy fuck, we need to do something about this. And all he did was he created a Facebook group, but he's also helped organize several protests now. And, you know, he just does that because he's seen the harm it causes. He sees that they're a awful organization and that people don't know that and need to know that, because if all of you ever see is one of those slick ads, like, because I mentioned on a previous show, I get Hulu, and their Scientology is advertising on Hulu. So I'm sitting there and, you know, the slick looking thing comes up and I'm like, fuck, that's Scientology. And then at the end, it's like, you know, Church of Scientology. And it looks just like the stuff you see in the show that they've shown clips of. It's slick. Looks amazing. It looks like, holy shit, you can save the world kind of thing. And people who want that sense of contribution and who really want to, you know, contribute to something bigger than themselves and all of that, that's going to speak to them. And if you don't know that they're dumping kids off in ranches and making them like scrub shit with toothbrushes, literally, you're going to think this is a great thing, and you're not going to know.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
that,
and I think
sorry, Morgan.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think on the other end, people think of Scientology as, you know, a joke. You know, people make fun of it and they're like, ha ha
Yes.
ha, all those dumb people believe in it. And they don't realize the harm that it does.
Yeah,
Because
Yes.
it's just
I
something
agree
that's
with
become
that.
sort of a cultural joke. You know, like
Yeah.
if you look at South Park episodes and it's like, you know,
Mhm.
the whole, oh, I can't believe people are so dumb and believe in Xenu, when it's really much more insidious than that.
Oh,
and much more harmful.
absolutely. I mean, you don't hear about Xenu until you reach the level of OT3. And it's an interesting one, because if you hear a Scientologist say, well, I've never heard that, and I've been in Scientology for 20 years, you know that they haven't reached OT3, because, you know.
Yes.
But I think it needs to be said that the individual Scientologist isn't a bad person or evil. They actually think that they're doing good, and they've been hoodwinked. They've been lied to. They have big events, I think 6 times a year, and they get told lies about Scientology expansion. Here in Ireland, the leader of Scientology said that just handing out leaflets had reduced drug-related crime by 86%. And it's like, whoa, are you kidding me? That's just not true. I mean, the actual figure, I think drug-related crime was down by 7% that year. But this man, David Miscavige, stands up before a couple of thousand Scientologists, and they all cheer and applaud. The video is then sent all around the Scientology world. And this is why the individual Scientologist, I say, is hoodwinked by this whole system, which is set up to keep them fooled. You know, they've been fooled, let's keep them fooled. And I know, like, I was a Scientologist for 7 years, but I still held the mindset for a further 14. So, you know, before I even began to question it, I had to have a moment where I went, hang on, that doesn't make sense. When you're in, you can't question things. So, you know, I feel sorry for the individual Scientologist, and they need our help as well. But how do you reach them? That's the key question, you know. Leah's show, absolutely, you know.
Definitely. Well, look at that. The one that really struck me was it was daughter was on one show and talking about her relationship with her mother, who was still at that point. And someone convinced the mother to watch not the show with her daughter in, but just the beginning of the series. And by the time she got to the show where her daughter was speaking, he went, fuck this, I'm out, bye-bye. And this is who had been in for decades. And you know, it was incredible. And she just, because it took something to hit her over the head with a ton of bricks to really kind of go, fuck, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But you don't see that when you're in those things. Like all of us who have you know, been devout in some sort of religion. Like, for instance, I was watching a video with my friend Armin Navabi. He founded the Atheist Republic, and he's an ex-Muslim. And he was talking about there's a ritual that you're supposed to do before you touch the words of the Quran. And he said that, you know, he hasn't been a Muslim in years, something like 14 years. And he said, even now, when he picks up a Quran, he has this urge to go and do the ritual. And he's like, I force myself to touch the words and go, no, I don't have to do that shit anymore, you know? And it's hideous. You don't realize it half the time. You know?
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. And I don't think we can underestimate the power of shows like The Aftermath and the effect it will have if you can get people to watch it. I know when I was in, I was told specifically not to read certain books and not to watch certain TV shows. And then, of course, you know how it works. Oh no, don't watch that because that's bad news. It's just the enemy attacking us, and you know we've got to, you know, carry on, fight the good fight. Yeah, interesting.
Scientology.
Well, that's the indoctrination that we face, whether we're in religion or in a cult, is that we're told not to do things, and that's a means of manipulation and control.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know some can't go on the internet. Like, well, okay, I'll use the dog as a prime example. They are not allowed to go on the internet without having a buddy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Watching over their shoulder to make sure they're not going to any sites that they consider subversive.
Well,
Go ahead.
the one story that I always think of now is Ron Miscavige, and how all it took was David did it himself by giving him a Kindle that had internet and not realizing it. Hey, this thing has internet. And I've watched I actually saw him speak in Milwaukee, which was wonderful.
Oh,
and
cool.
He went on the internet in order to find out the good things that people would be, because he's like, well, we're doing such awesome work. There must be talk about us all over the place. First thing he Googled was like, this is like a fake religion and it's exploiting people and blah. He's like, what the fuck? And he's like, I was out, done, bye. Somebody
well,
said
I know when I was first diagnosed with bipolar, and it was still, you know, pre-internet as we know it today, and DH came up. And they were like all anti-psychiatry and anti-psychology, and I'm like, this ain't right. And then I did a little bit more digging and found out they were Scientology, and it was like, you know, somebody in worse shape than I was and I can see how people fall into this crap. And it's really scary because they prey on not just Scientology, but all religions, prey on when we're the weakest.
Yep.
And they just build and build on that. And, well, Diane Benscotter, when she became a Mooney, she says right in her one TED Talk that, you know, she wanted to save the world. What the Moonies were doing were great until she discovered she was in with the Moonies, and by then it was too late.
Yep.
And, you know, it took her being deprogrammed, literally. Steve Hanson's the same way. He thought he was going to save the world.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like,
that's what we were told, and she was raised in it, so she's like, I thought my help save the world, and guess what? Not so much. But there's another effect of the show now that's being, well, I don't think it's a real effect, but Pete, have you heard of the story about Danny Masterson over there?
Oh, I have. Oh, yeah. And again, this gets into the area where if something bad does happen, you've got to protect Scientology at all costs. And if you go into what's been going on over the years with Danny Masterson, how himself and his victim were in the same room, and, you know, they basically tried to ask her not to go to the LAPD. You know, there's an awful lot of stuff in that area. And the Danny Masterson thing is only one. I've heard of cases where stuff's being covered up to protect Scientology's so-called good name, except they don't have a good name, because if they did, there wouldn't be anything to cover up. It's horrible. And I really hope that anybody who's done anything so disgusting and against the law gets what they deserve. And I really, you know, feel quite strongly about that, you know.
Well, I thought it was bizarre that he was basically trying to blame Scientology in the aftermath for or he's like, oh, it's just people trying to get, you know, attention from the show and that kind of.
Which again is pretty horrible, because, you know, there are people exposing what goes on, and they no, they're just lying, they're making it all up, and you know, it really is disgusting. It really is.
It is. I think with the show before last, they were talking about how everybody who's appeared, has a hate site, and Mike Rinder's like, I think we have 120 of them now. He goes, I only have like 85.
Yeah, they attack back, and again, that's Scientology policy. It's attack, never defend. And if L. Ron Hubbard said that, that's what you do, and that's exactly what they're doing. But it's horrible because, you know, there are victims, there are real victims here. Now, you've probably heard that within Scientology, you can't be a victim. It's your fault. So you have auditing sessions where they get you to find out, what did you do to pull it in, right? You've heard that one, yeah?
Yeah, what did you do to pull it in?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. You must have done something just as bad for this to happen to you.
So if
really?
bad happens to you, chances are you're going to get pulled in for a whole whack of sec checks.
You said it.
They've assumed that you've done something to cause it. So it's like the ultimate in victim blaming.
Well, yeah, and I think that also keeps them from coming forward too, because if you get somebody to believe, oh, well, this was my fault, I caused this, then you're not going to, you know, go to the police. And you're, I believe one of Leah Remini's whole deals with why she thinks Masterson, that investigation was a whole cover up, is because I think she said a captain of the LAPD goes to the Scientology Center very regularly.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, I was wondering just, you know, how are they able to cover it up? And, you know, it's just, it seems to be that in all these positions of power, there's a Scientologist everywhere you turn. So
I'm sure that's deliberate. It's got to be deliberate.
Well, yeah, because I was wondering, because you know, whenever you think of Scientology, you think of, I know that, well, I mean, I'm more isolated because I'm in the Southeast, but you know, I think of people like Tom Cruise and, you know, maybe a few rich celebrities and like maybe, you know, there's a few hundred wealthy people in the Church of Scientology. So it's always been kind of mystifying how they're able to do these massive cover-ups, but I guess it's bigger than that.
How many years ago
it's just
that we were hearing those stories about John Travolta harassing male masseurs?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And people have started, I've seen some mumblings about that again, but how many years ago was that? And it was kind of like, oh, well, that's got to be somebody trying to get money out of him because
yeah.
You know,
I think too, a lot of the cover up, to go to what Morgan was saying, we see it with the Christian right. I mean, you know, and it's a point I harp back to a lot, is what we're seeing, you know, we have a whole school, Patrick Henry College, whose whole mission is to get these kids, you know, nuts into public office in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's in the police, I mean, white supremacists, their one mission is to get people within the police force. The religiotards are, you know, gearing towards politics, and we're seeing it with people like Betsy DeVos, head of our education department. We see it with Mike Pence, who's our vice president. I mean, this is you know, and it's carried over, you know, who started it first. Christianity is a toss-up, really, but that strategy has worked. And whether Scientology is taking advantage or, you know, vice versa, it doesn't really matter. I mean, we see it with, I mean, James Dobson today came out in support of Roy Moore. I mean, throw out his alleged sex crimes, and you still got a skeezy guy that's running for public office that should never be, who's totally unqualified. But because it fits his agenda, his religious agenda, Scientology was cozying up to Farrakhan for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to use whatever they can, whatever strategy works. And now you have people like Leah fighting back. And I think it was you, Deb, that was telling me, and well, you mentioned it with Mike Rinder having 85 sites against him. I mean, Leah's got to be coming close to that by now. I mean, sadly, I've been really, really shitty about keeping up on her show.
Well, remember what we talked about before, Beth and Pete? I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've noticed fair game strategies
Oh yeah.
in other places. For instance, Pete, have you ever read few of Trump's tweets when some
Yes.
just that not
Well,
sound like fair game 101? They're a loser, their career's going in the toilet, and they're just trying to get attention. And that's like what he says over and over and over again. And it's like you're reading a Scientology smear site.
just
It
to
is,
interject
isn't it?
really, and this is totally off topic, but remember we did the episode about Nivix,
Yeah.
the cult with
Excellent.
Keith Raniere? Allegedly, he just fled the country.
Oh,
Allegedly,
allegedly.
the New York State Attorney General was getting ready to file charges. But
Wow.
he's another one, it's a newish cult to us as far as coming to the fore that came to our attention that we did a spotlight on him a couple weeks ago. But yeah, he's fled the country. But they used, we talked about it even in the show about the fair game.
Yeah, because it's the same kind of stuff. But that just stood to me when I was watching something that was reading Trump tweets, and I'm like, that sounds exactly like a fucking Scientology, hate site. And I have to wonder,
well, it's just like,
is he studying this shit, or is somebody
No.
hey,
He hasn't studied anything in his
like,
life.
okay, well, is somebody going, hey, Scientology has had some good success with this tactic.
I think he knows it's effective. I think that fair game has been effective for multiple groups, not just Scientology. And maybe he's observed Scientology using it. Maybe he's also observed others using it. I mean, it's a fair game is a pretty common, really it's an abuse tactic, but it's really to detract attention away from your own wrongdoing in yourself. I mean, I think that we all know somebody like that. Like if you ever point out their own shortcomings or say, hey, that was kind of a shitty thing to do, they'll be like, oh, well, they're, they blah, 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 blah,
When I
do whatever.
Go on my page and they come out with, well, you're fat. I'm like, okay, so
Exactly. Yeah. So whatever you say is irrelevant. Yeah. So I think there's multiple people who do that, and maybe not even realizing that Scientology does it, or maybe they've picked it up from multiple groups or people.
It was just a style.
I have to interject this. The other day I was called a troll based on my profile picture.
Oh,
and I said, well, which one are you calling the troll? Because there's two of us in my profile picture. Because the picture of you and I when we were downstairs came to visit me, Deb. And he goes, well, the redhead, obviously. And I said, well, you're wrong, because that ain't me. And I said, you just opened a whole fucking hornet's nest with that one if I tell her that you just call her a fucking troll. I said, why do you people insist on picking fights with people that have web pages? Because one of my favorite things is if someone pisses me, I just write a blog post about him and post it on my webpage. I don't give a flying shit if, you got something, back it up with facts.
That's the thing, and I have to wonder, because the hate sites, so at what point, if you've got 120 odd websites that says basically the same stuff about Leah Remini, at what point are you going to sit there and go, okay, 120 sites that all sound the same, that kind of all say the same shit, and when they say things like, oh, her career's in the toilet, well, no, it wasn't, because she had a show, and a lot of people
Pretty good show.
Well, like, at what point
do you think it comes
that loses its effectiveness? Because I think
do you think it's more
it's not going to work.
Well, do you think it's more the more you say something, the louder you say something, the more you say something, the more people are likely to believe it? Or do you think it's that, or do you think it's just, well, you deal with this shit.
Or maybe multiple hits on the different sites. Like people will go, maybe we're hoping more people will be exposed to it if there's so many different sites.
And maybe they have to be seen to be doing something about the enemy, to convince their own members that they're being effective, you know.
Mm.
That's the point.
Yeah, seems like you're talking about we have 120 sites, you know, refuting Leah Remini, even though they all say the same thing. You know, they're not going to tell them that. They're just going to be like, we have 120 sites that are all denouncing her.
And we must be right because we've got more. But I think that's why it's more important for people to stand up and if they see something or they hear about something, you know, share it, tell people. You know, I think it's so important that we don't give up, you know, in the face of fair game, because it can be pretty scary, and especially if you're on your own. Fortunately, most of us have some kind of support network, and it works, you know. So,
well, now this is funny because just for fun, I just put leahremini.com in, and that is obviously her own website.
Right.
So if I'm somebody who's like, who's this Leah Remini person? That's the place I'm going to go, leahremini.com, if they're famous. So I'm like, I can't even think of another URL that I would even look for at this point.
leahremini.edu. .org. Maybe they have an organization in her name.
Let's try .org and see what that
.org. But I mean, you never know with them. Maybe it's like one letter off that they've bought a domain, like if you spell it wrong.
No, that doesn't exist. .org doesn't exist. I'm wondering, maybe she's managed to get some of them shut down. But let's try .ca. Oh, doesn't exist. So they're not doing
well, I just typed in Leah Remini show and I got an ad. It says the truth about Leah Remini and A&E show Aftermath, www.standleague.org. It says stand taking action against discrimination and combating bigotry and digital hate speech.
Oh, fuck that.
And yeah, it's Leah Remini Aftermath.com, and saying that her brand of hate, I'm not clicking on the websites, but this is just what I'm getting in the little description under Google. Remini's brand of hate and bigotry is funded by A&E. Well, they put on the show, so and then her show, they're claiming that her show has led to 500 documented threats of violence, death threats, basically acts of terrorism. You know, those radical anti-Scientologist terrorists we hear so much about.
I think what we have to be careful of here is just listening to the words. I think you mentioned it earlier, Beth, about, you know, you can back things up with docs these days because they exist. And, you know, just calling somebody a hate monger or saying that there's been 500 threats, show us the proof, you know, and then we might believe you. But they don't. They just do the name calling thing, you know?
Exactly.
I think that's one of the things I've learned over the last couple of years is that I'm very careful about what I say.
Oh, yeah.
I know I do attack religion and religious beliefs. I try not to attack individuals unless it's an individual of power that should know, like Franklin Graham or Steven Anderson, Kevin Swanson, people like that who are in, but to attack somebody like, let's say, Morgan, who's just I'm not going to do that unless it insinuates onto, and this is what got me involved in the whole church here in the U.S. is that it began to have an impact on my life.
Wow.
I'm just your everyday Jane. But because I'm a lesbian, when you start basing your discrimination on religious doctrine that in our country has no say in the matter, I mean, we're a secular nation and always have been, religious doctrines that, you know, people use to justify certain laws. I mean, we're seeing it now with the bathroom bills.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the term cognitive bias?
Mm-hmm.
Because that basically,
and I have a huge one.
everything fits the picture because you want it to, you know. So
yeah, Yeah, and I would be lying if I said I didn't have one. But I try to balance it out, and I've commented shows. I'm very well aware of what the other side says. I mean, one of the criticisms I face most often, oh, you don't read the other side. Well, yes, I do. Time reading right-wing sites. Most of the time I end up bald when I'm done, because I've pulled all my hair out. And said, well, you never post any right-wing sites. And I said, because what they publish is bullshit. They have nothing to support their claims but opinion. Now, opinion informed is not a bad thing if you can back it up. And I think that's where, you know, we take a show like Leah's, or we take your website. I mean, most of what or hear on the show can be backed up, whether it's by personal experience or by whether it's history within the organization. We all know that Scientology is not kosher. It may not have started out as a bad thing, but the cult of personality took over, especially in regards to Miscavige. I mean, he's gone totally. I mean, even with Xenu, which is has a lot of equate a lot to Scientology. In fact, I felt I was reading a Scientology bullshit when I was reading about him. And, you know, but there's history there that supports this. They have nothing. They have pure opinion. Oh, well, Leah's a bad person. Peter's a bad person because he's against us. But we have nothing to support that. But he's a bad person. He's a bad... And that's all you see for 120 sites.
Well, with this one that I found, they are saying that they're pulling up, I guess it's tabloid articles. This one I have, it's like Leah Remini aftermath money, and then she's like, it really should be Leah Remini after the money because they're clever, I guess. But yeah, one of her their prime example of one of the threats they got was the vandalism and hate targeting the church. They said one came from a 13-year-old boy who posted a death threat against a church leader after binge watching Remini's show. And it's like, that's the most extreme thing they have. And then they compare it to the production of Generation KKK, and they said after it leaked that Klan members run its payroll, the same has been found for Aftermath. And then they have how she recruits bullies to join her harassment campaign, how she viciously broke up a family by having an affair with someone, how she treats her own family, how she doesn't get along with people in her professional life, and then how she doesn't get along with other people, and just all this
thing is,
this nonsense.
It doesn't matter if all of those things, like,
it doesn't. Actually, it doesn't matter.
She cheated. She's a bitch to her family, and you know she treats.
I'm a bitch to my family.
Me too. They'd say the same shit about me. They'd be like, "Ugh, she dated a loser once, and
My brother and I barely talked. We talked for the first time 3 years ago when my mom died. Talked in like 7 years, but he's still my brother.
I think as well,
blood,
you know.
because
I think the other thing is you can read all that stuff, and then you can watch the show and make up your own mind. And
exactly,
yeah, that doesn't come across in the show. I think a lot of 13-year-old boys might have, you know, threatened to kill people. They don't really mean it.
Are the worst.
Yeah. Oh, they're terrible.
Especially on the internet. Especially on the internet. Like, it's just like, oh, here you go, 13-year-old boy, you act crazy online. And it's like, that's the most extreme example. Like, I thought they would have, you know, a bomb threat or something crazy. And it's like, oh, they make it sound like they're receiving just a barrage of death every day. And it's
You've got to watch out for the 13-year-old boys who are pretending to be 13-year-old girls. They are the really dangerous ones.
I think you made a good point, Peter, is that it's out there that we can make up our own mind.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, we can look for the information that Leah or yourself, you know, with Spies R Us, we can look for verifying information. Deb and I ran into this arguing about transgender rights, and it's like, no, the statistics coming from the FBI, okay, you know, don't support your claim. You have it from, okay, I'm going to just throw a name out there, Project Veritas, because we were talking about O'Keefe and his bullshit.
Right.
But, I mean, who are you going to believe, WAPO or Veritas? I'm going to go with WAPO.
They're the mainstream media.
Yeah.
They don't want you to know the truth behind their intentions. It's basically what they're. I see from these websites. It's like they're trying to do this insidious thing where it's like, yes, you can go watch the show, but they're not going to tell you all about her extra
marital affair.
I don't really care. I could really care less about her affair unless it's biased her opinion in some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
I'll use Kent Hovind as a perfect example. He's got 2 marriages and now definitely 1 divorce. I don't know if he's divorced from Tuckle, but that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things about my arguing his belief in creationism, because it's bunk.
Exactly.
I could care less whether he's married or not, or who he's married to. He could be gay for all I care. I don't give a flying fuck.
It doesn't
all I
even
care about.
If her motivation was just to make money, that might be like, okay, well, you're kind of exploitive, but that doesn't mean that what she said is not true. It just that has no bearing on facts whatsoever.
And she won an Emmy. Let's not move away from that, you know. So,
but that's the Jewish controlled cabal of Hollywood. And you know where that's going to lead.
Oh yeah.
You'd think there'd be less Nazi puff pieces if the Jews controlled the media.
Well, Mark,
Mark
had a good point up here too. I just have to find. Oh, he said that. I think he's referring to the website that we were looking at. He said that that's a Scientology anti-defamation group. Oh, maybe I'm reading.
Oh, that was one of the websites. Yes, they have an anti-defamation, scientists taking a stand against.
That's the one. Yeah, they call it Stand, and it's Scientologists.
That was the ad I saw. Like, it was the first ad I got on Google when I typed in Leah Remini show. It was the very first ad that popped up.
But he's saying that they claim that they're not part of Scientology.
But it's in their name. Like, it even says it. Well, it doesn't in the ad. It doesn't indicate that it's funded or ran by Scientologists in any way, shape, or form. It's just like, Leah Remini is, a hate monger. And then you click on it, and then you see their logo, and it stands for, Scientologists taking action against defamation or something like that.
It's the same thing. Sorry. If any of them is acting for the propaganda arm of Scientology, and that covers the whole Narconon, CCHR, Way to Happiness, Truth About Drugs. If any of them is doing that for that period of time, they stop being a Scientologist. It's like, oh no, we're CCHR. Yes, but a Scientologist really. I think the only thing to do is just keep pushing the message and just keep on saying it. Eventually, I mean, the numbers are dwindling. The numbers are really dwindling, and that's what we want. 2 Scientologists left in the world.
Quickly though, Mark.
I think there's a good. Go ahead, Deb.
Mark had another point. He says, "As a Jew, I can confirm the fact that we control the media."
That's a good one. Yeah.
Well, I think there's some parallels too if you look at apologetics as a whole. For some odd reason, is William Lane Craig's argument of divine command theory, because God said it's good, i.e. genocide. But they agree that it's like, if your evidence or your factoids or your opinion is informed on legitimate claims, then you have nothing to worry about. But if you're just opinion based on opinion, not the people. Eventually, people are going to hopefully wake up. I mean, thankfully. I mean, it took somebody like Leah to really, I think, bring face to Scientology and how dangerous it can be.
She's been getting 1.4 million viewers, I believe, on every show, and you can't underestimate the power of that. And like you said, Beth, you know, you've got people in your daily life coming up to you, talking to you. I think we're all experiencing that to some degree. Not just Leah's show, Louis Throux's show as well. Did you guys see that? Yeah.
Yes.
I heard about it, but I didn't see
it.
I'm so woefully behind.
Okay.
My Scientology movie.
That's the one, yeah. That's been shown recently on TV here. It was shown on a Sunday, and then they repeated it on the Wednesday. And people are coming up to me and saying things. Hey, I saw that show the other night, and it's great. Let's just keep the word out there. Let's just keep it to the forefront, and hopefully legislators will start stepping in.
Well, it's like the whole Idaho thing with faith healing, with the death of kids. I mean, it's finally, it's the work of one woman, Linda Martin, slowly starting to see. And like just the other day, this is an issue I've been following for the last couple of years because it's getting no traction in Idaho. It's finally starting to, but it's taken more and more children dying.
Oh, wow. And how does that actually work then? What do the faith healers do?
Well, they believe in prayer. They don't go to the doctors for their children.
Wow.
So their kids, if I remember correctly, and I'm pulling this from memory, but I might have a couple stories combined here, but there was one child who had diabetes, and the parents knew he had diabetes and knew that he should be on medication for it. It was type 1. Which is inherited, and without medication, you will die. Type 1 is not one that will go away based on, oh, shoot, someone just is at my door.
Okay.
And I'll be back in a minute.
Yep.
But yeah, basically it is like there was one couple, they fed their kid like a combination of spices and maple syrup and apple cider vinegar, and that was supposed to cure his meningitis. And there's been all kinds of people that just don't take their kids to the doctor for, very minor things like ear infections, and they grow into something so much worse. And it's not the situation where these parents can't afford to take their kids to the doctor, it's that they choose not to. And they give them these home remedies, or either they just pray and do nothing at all. But recently what's happened is they have been facing more charges, either under child abuse or neglect, or even manslaughter and negligent homicide, essentially.
That's incredible.
Has been happening recently, but there's still some states that are resilient to it because, again, it's we have to, teach.
Yeah, we have the same kind of crap here. We've got something called the Genesis 2 Church, which was started by a man called Jim Humble, who was a Scientologist at one time. And he's one of these people that advocates treating autistic kids by injecting bleach into the rectum.
Yes.
Yes.
You've heard of that, yeah.
Here, yes.
MMS.
Yeah.
MMS. By Jim Humble.
Yep.
Gary Rivera.
That's the guy, yeah. It's unbelievable what people...
We just had it here. It was a young couple, I think in their late 20s, early 30s. They had a 7-year-old son who got strep. And they treated him with oil of oregano and some other shit.
Garlic, honey.
It wasn't even religious. They were just like, they're the anti-GMO.
Oh, actually, underlying it all was religion. In fact, the father just lost his appeal and is now blaming the justice system and anybody but himself for the fact. Yeah, but it all.
The mother got 3 years, and they just upheld that conviction this week. So she had appealed that conviction, and it was
3 years for that. I would sit my ass in jail and not say shit. Like, what?
I know. The boy died, obviously.
Yeah, like that is light for like. God, you can just let your kid die and get 3 years, but don't sell a bag of weed.
Well, and that takes us a whole side story is this whole religious exemption.
Yeah,
and the United States is one of the few countries that are not part of child rights worldwide. There's a term, and I can't think of it offhand, but it goes to
because
people
these are kids
like
anymore.
Scientology, who has CCR and all the other group, Narconon that Peter had mentioned, and this is their backdoor in. They're using these innoxious things, Narconon. I mean, I know a few people that went through Narconon but did not realize, and even I didn't realize at the time. This was years ago. I didn't even realize it was Scientology, even though I had
they
read
don't tell you.
Oh, and it's
They're good about that.
I think W had mentioned it. They don't mention their Scientology.
No. I'm sorry, Beth. Did you just say that you'd read Dianetics?
Oh yeah, I actually contemplated Scientology back good 40-45 years.
Oh, wow.
I read all.
How did you get through that?
I was searching. It was like, I wouldn't even say I was an agnostic at that time, but I was exploring other. I got into Josh McDowell. You're talking in early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and he had this series of books on cults with Scientology. He dealt with all the Mormonism. Mormonism was considered a cult until Mitt Romney ran for president. Then all of a sudden it wasn't a cult, and Mormons are our friends. But now they're going back to being a cult. If you read Franklin Graham's site, Samaritan Purse. But yeah, I got it messed. I was a mess.
Okay.
I haven't tried to do yet.
Beth, did you remember reading that bit that Tony Ortega drew attention to recently, where Hubbard was saying that a 7-year-old girl shouldn't really see anything wrong with a grown man kissing her, even if it's a passionate kiss? Do you remember that bit? It's apparently in the Dianetics book. If you look on Tony's blog,
I'd have to look it up again.
Yeah. They never stopped calling the police on just everybody involved with that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, like some people say, well, he was just using that as an example, and you could argue that he was, but at the same time, why would you use that as an example?
Yeah,
instead of literally anything else.
Instead of anything, anything else. He has said some terrible stuff in his times. Some of his more, well, I mean, any Hubbard lecture is fascinating to listen to. It starts to make sense if you think, is he on speed or something? Then it starts.
Well, I know Deb has listened to quite a few of Hubbard's speeches. She's been able to deal with Hubbard better than I have. I get to certain points with Pete. Yeah. I can listen to nut jobs like Anderson, but Hubbard drives me insane.
I've listened to the Xenu talk.
Right.
And he starts off by talking about touch assists.
He does,
yeah.
Yeah,
so he's about that and all of a sudden he starts talking about Xenu, and you're like, whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah. It just comes out of nowhere, doesn't it? He's talking about like assists, and then suddenly it's like bang. In fact, they call that the assists lecture, I believe.
Yeah,
I think what's fascinating about all these quote religious leaders, if you listen to them at their root, they'll start out talking like about assists and go to something totally innoxious like Xenu.
Yeah.
And before you realize it, you're hooked. And it's like I mean that's what got me hooked on. I eventually converted to Pentecostalism, then got out. But it's like I can see, even when I got involved in the paranormal for a while, and I was an atheist by then, but I was so fucked up that I didn't know which end my ass was at.
Do you know now?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure now. It took a while, but yeah. And that's what these people like Hubbard, like Miscavige, well, I don't even know who runs
it's
Mormonism,
fascinating.
but these churches,
they're
all the same.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's why I think when
John
we get
Atack
shows
has John Atack's written some good stuff about undue influence, as he calls it. and how it affects us in our daily lives, from TV advertising to it's just everywhere. It's politics, it's religion, and he has written a book on the subject. I seem to remember doing a small review for that, but I'm not a very good book reviewer. I just read it for the pleasure most of the time. But yeah, he's done some good stuff. Yeah, he's done some good stuff on that.
And I think for people like us, I think we've gotten past that point where we see all this crap in the news, in the media, in TV. I don't watch TV because I don't have one. I can't afford it.
Right.
And really, for me, I put 2 hours of watching the same, I'm a news junkie. So, but I think for everyday folk, inundated with this stuff, and that's why we need shows like Leah's show. We need websites like what you run, or Deb and I run. Morgan, you have Biskeptical podcast. I mean, I think we need that dose of reality to snap us back. But some people,
we totally do. It can't be understated.
They're Fox News.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
it needs to be said over and over.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I laugh, even though my dad's pretty fundamentalist and has a tinge of evangelicalism. I haven't actually come out to him as far as being an atheist, although I'm pretty sure he's figured out I'm gay, although I've never actually come up to him in that either. But he's 90 years old. I'm not going to rock the boat too much now. When I said, well, it'd be a miracle if I had a spit baby, I'm pretty sure he put 2 and 2 together. That was 20 years ago.
I think parents know,
But it's like even as much as he is a fundamentalist, to some degree he's not. He doesn't. Him and I will get on these political conversations. I call him every 2 weeks since my mom's side, and it's just like he's a breath of fresh air because he doesn't just sit and watch Fox News. And I don't mean to pick on Fox News, but I do. People that. That's it. That's their whole life. If is Fox News or Alex Jones, God forbid.
Oh wow!
I mean, it's like seriously, people. Oh, CNN lies, MSN lies, or whatever.
Snopes.
It's just
Recently, they've started dissing Snopes lies.
Yes.
Can't even Snopes anything anymore.
Snopes. Yeah. Oh my God! You even mention that word in some of my circles, and you're going to get your head chopped off. I don't use Snopes for that reason, because it's like kind of fighting a dead horse you're going to lose. Independently verify it. I use Snopes as a starting point, but I don't tell people that's where I got the information from. But it's like, this whole fact checking thing, and the borrow from Gleb Tversky that we had on a while ago. It's like we have to fact check everything.
Yeah, fact checking's made up by the Jews, Beth.
Yeah,
duh. Somebody's gonna isolate that, and they're gonna run that into like some ad one day.
You destroy my reality.
Yeah, I know.
I absolutely agree with you there, Beth. You have to fact check, and then once you've checked those facts out, check them again. I've met people who claim that they don't need to do that, and I walk away. I just walk away. I don't want to engage. If you can't be bothered to check facts, or you don't think you need to, then I don't want to know. You know what I mean?
And Mark says yes, they invent fact checking as well.
Yes, we did. We did. Who's we? Ask Mark, who's we?
The lizard people Jews.
Oh yeah, of course. So he's trying to say.
Yes.
I get it now.
It's one thing to have an opinion and say this is my opinion. I mean, but it's another thing to pass your opinion or the opinion of others off as fact. I think we're dealing with Scientology, so that's why we have you on. I think we need to really look beyond, not just Leah, but look beyond her show.
Oh, totally. Yeah. In my opinion, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Leah's show. I like what she's presented. I like the fact that she's attacking Scientology because of how invasive Scientology is. But just because it's coming from Leah Remini, okay, I have a little bit of a hot for it. Not like Mariska Hargitay from Law and Order, but there's, I know I have to go beyond that. I can't take it just because Leah said it. I can't take it just because Peter said it or Deb said it. I mean, if people haven't figured out, Deb and I agree on 99.9% of things, almost 100%. There's a few things we disagree on, but we're able to talk about it. I mean, I've gotten in conversations with creationists lately. I don't know why I'm on that kick for some reason. It's like, well, I'm not anti-science, but yet they're anti-science. I mean, that ends the conversation right there for me.
It's like the people that are like, I'm not racist, but, and then they'll say something incredibly horribly racist. Yeah, and they're the worst. But yeah, it's just you believe whatever you want to, because I think that there's this sort of danger of it. I mean, that is presented, and this is what I was taught in journalism school, it's that the facts, if they lean one way, that's what happens. They lean that way. It is not your job to go through and be like, oh, everybody's opinion is of value, because it's like, there might be 5 sides to a story and you present that. But I mean, if the evidence supports, some sides more than another, then that's how they go. It's not your job to try to make this sort of false equivalency. And I think that is what has led us to people thinking that their opinions are all valid, and that, even though they're not supported by facts, or that their opinions even rise to the level of factual information, because it's this whole, oh, well, I'm just as valid.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, if you do have opinions that are not fact-based, then your opinion's probably going to be wrong. The chances of it being wrong are increased. If you do check your facts, then your opinions are going to be pretty much on the ball. So whatever it is, it's late here for me now. It's like 2 a.m, so I'm kind of brain melting a little bit, but I'm following. I'm keeping up.
Well, at least we're earlier than we were the last time you were on.
Yeah, that's true.
Is there anything that's come out in the show that's really surprised you? Because I mean, I thought I had a decent handle on stuff, and then they came out with things that I'm like, fuck, really? Wow. So was there anything that really surprised the hell out of you
in Leah's show?
Yeah.
There's been something in every episode, to be honest. It's very difficult to watch some of the stuff that's been heartbreaking, and not to watch it with dry eyes. I mean, okay,
a number of shows.
Like I'm a man, but if I feel like crying, I cry, and
cries at movies. It's okay.
Yeah, okay. And I'll be honest with you now. I can actually cry just thinking about some of the things that have happened. I don't know if you're familiar with what happened with Kyle Brennan, but I only have to think about that and think of his mum, and I cry. I can't help it. It's just so absolutely horrible.
That was a man who was denied mental health.
Right. Well, I mean, as far as we know, his father locked his medication in the boot of his car. Kyle was found dead from a gunshot wound. Scientology immediately went into cover-up mode. His mum doesn't know what the hell happened that night. She still doesn't know 10 years later. And it just breaks my heart, Yeah. And to put Scientology above that, for what reason, So his mum doesn't know what happened, Maybe his dad is not telling the truth. Maybe the Scientologists are not telling the truth. There's so many maybes in the whole story. But just taking that as an example, I mean, that is just so upsetting to think that this fucking religion, so-called, sets itself up as saving mankind and saving the world. And you know something? They really need to be taken to task. The leader needs to be thrown in jail. There's no question about that. And get a few kicks up the arse on the way. And I'm not advocating violence at all here, but it's just absolutely horrible. As Mark just said, the story of Ellie Perkins is just awful. Again, it was somebody who was taking medication because of Scientology beliefs. They were persuaded to come off the medication, and as far as I can remember, he stabbed his mother over 70 times. You know,
Oh my God.
this is the stuff that Scientology doesn't want you to know. Then there's the poor man in Australia who's lost 2 kids to Scientology while they were attending an event. On the first occasion, I think they were left in the charge of a 15-year-old boy with a broken arm. 15-year-old boy, not 13 this time. And it's horrible because the baby crawled over the edge of a stairwell, you know. And then on another occasion, there was his other child drank bloody bleach, you know. All because no one was looking after them. And Scientology, and then let's mention Tyler Reeves as well, who again died in a fire when his mum was at work at the org till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes,
and they blamed his brother. You know, his brother got the blame for that. So Scientology, when something bad happens, the first thing you do, you call OSA, and they come up with a story or make sure everyone's saying the same thing. And this is when you get, you know, victims of sex abuse are coached on what to say. And, you know, let's convince the police, going back to what we talked about earlier about, you know, how come the police buy into all this? Well, they seem like honest, decent people. They're doing all this wonderful work. How could they lie to us, you know? There you go.
Well, I think not just within Scientology, but any of your
everywhere,
any religion, really. It's what happens with these parents when they, well, when or if they finally wake up. And not to add to the rumor mill, but the first thing that popped into my head is, what about John Travolta?
Yeah.
And the death of his son. When is, I mean, it's like when the realization hits that their religious beliefs, and I'm not just picking on Scientology here, when their beliefs, whether it be religious or non-religious, because I do know of some Buddhists, non-deistic, that the same thing has happened, and you know, children have been you know, what happens when they wake up and they realize that it's basically all a lie?
That's
or
right.
You're following some cult of personality.
So it gets complicated because, you know, I've said over and over, it's not about beliefs, it's about behavior. And that's absolutely true. I think Senator Xenophon said that best of all in Australia. But when those beliefs affect behavior, and you get stuff going on like this, then it is about beliefs suddenly, you know. And L. Ron Hubbard's teachings in Scientology cause a lot of the problems that Scientology faces itself with. And yeah, we have to do something about it. That's why I protest. That's why I'm going to be there on Saturday. You know, I could not, when I realized that Scientology was a scam and a con, my second thought almost was, oh my God, those poor fuckers who are still in, I have to help them. And the only reason I do this is because I want to help those who are still in, and I want to prevent people from joining if I can, stop them from making the same mistakes. Exactly. But let them make up their own mind about that. You know, I would never, you know, say, oh no, don't do it. Well, I would actually, and I do. But if they want to go ahead and find out, let them by all means, you know.
Yeah, like you're not going to physically restrain someone from going in to get a stress test, but you're going to tell them, this is when you go in for the stress test, this is what's going to happen. This is what they're going to tell you. And this is what's going to happen after that. And
that's right. Yeah.
$1,000 at a Xenu later, you're going to be up shit.
You're going to be $1,000 poorer.
Yeah.
It's fascinating the number of people that have reached that level, OT3, have read that piece of paper and gone, oh, fuck. And that's been the point where they wake up and walk out. A lot of people.
I bet.
Oh yeah, some don't make it past that point, which is kind of fascinating.
Leah's story where she said that was the show she did with her mother, and she said, "Yeah, they were smart enough to plop my mother down." When I read it, and because she says she was one of the ones that thought, "Okay, is this a test? Like, if I believe this, then I'm going to get kicked out, kind of thing."
Yeah,
and
that's an interesting one. Yeah,
mother
and another thing. When I was in court, the judge was asking one of the Scientologists under oath about the things I'd been saying on the video we watched. And a lot of it was LRH quotes like, somebody someday will say this is illegal. By then be sure the orgs say what's legal or not. That's one of them. And then the other thing was OT3 stuff. And the guy sat there under oath. He said, well, I've heard some of it, but other parts of it were completely alien to me. I'd never heard of them. See what I did there? Well, I'd never heard of them, which made me think, okay, well, at least now I know that he's not reached OT3. And I was telling a friend of mine this, and he said, and they probably won't let him reach OT3 now.
Oh.
And I thought, because if he reaches OT3, he's going to go, hang on a minute, this is what Pete Giffiths was saying to me. Yeah. So it's not inconceivable that they might prevent this guy from ever doing OT3, because when he does, he's going to walk out. So there's all kinds of complicated little things going on, and that's just another one there, possibly. I could be just making all this up, but
Well, it makes sense. I mean,
yeah.
Because that invariably would happen if they got there and went, wait a minute. And
I remember something.
There's the other side. Remember the Panorama interview with when she was still in, and who was the reporter that did that? I can't remember, but he said flat out to Leah, "What's with the Xenu stuff?" And I don't know what you're talking about. That's a bunch of bullshit.
Tommy Davis.
Well, Tommy Davis was there. I forget who the Panorama guy's name was.
Oh, John Sweeney.
John Sweeney, that's right. And she flat out lied to John Sweeney, and she said later, because I legitimately thought I would kill him with pneumonia if I told him.
That is so funny. Yeah.
In fact, that would be a great, to do with if I met a Scientology that was past OT3, I could be like, look, dude, I have listened to the lecture myself. I've never had pneumonia. Okay. I have had a lung infection, but I've never had actual pneumonia.
Well, for me, waking up, and it was only 9 years ago now, reading that OT3 was the thing. And I can actually remember coming to that part. I think I was reading Russell Miller's book, and I came to that bit and I went, oh my God, he's gonna talk about OT3 now. Should I carry on reading this? And I kind of went, well, I've came this far, let's go. And I read it and I went, what? That's it. So, I kind of did that thing myself. Another guy I know, whose name I can't reveal, but he did the OT3. He read the thing and he went, okay, that's it. I'm out of here. And when I asked him about it, he said, well, to be honest, I don't regret doing any of it, but I certainly wouldn't want to do any of it again. And I liked that. I thought, yeah, that kind of sums up my attitude. I don't regret it, but I wouldn't do it again. And I would absolutely advise people not to do it, because the mind fuckery goes so deep and it's so insidious. I think you used that word earlier, Deb. It is. You don't realize that it's there, what it's doing to you. I know people now who've not been in Scientology for years that come out with Scientology terms and they don't know they're doing it,
that happens.
Well, we've had that with
we had a guest on
a couple of our guests.
Yeah. A year ago, she was raised in the Quiverful movement. That's the same as the Duggars and all of that. And they're very, very patriarchal, and there's, their lives are quite regimented. And
Quiverful.
quiverful. Those are the ones that believe
Yeah.
you have as many children as God wants, and they
Right.
don't.
Somebody mentioned that earlier in the show tonight, didn't they, as well?
Beth, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
This lady, she was describing, her experience and what her life in that environment was like, and she suddenly just started talking jargon, and
Wow, yeah.
she's like, "Oh, geez, I'm sorry, I do that. I didn't, and it just happened so seamlessly, and she didn't even notice it right away.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's like Jerry DeWitt. He can still talk in tongues.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even though hasn't been in the church in a very long time.
Can anybody here do
catch
that?
myself.
No.
It's just I've never heard it. I'd love to hear it. Is it just like people going blah, 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 is that it?
Basically.
My co-host Trav used to do it, but they said that when they didn't know how to do it, so they were just kind of going along with it. So Trav said they started humming mbop. And they would just sing the chorus to mbop, really, really fast and kind of creepy like, so that no one would catch on.
That's hilarious. I knew a guy one time was a Quaker, and
Right.
did you hear how they got their name? They used to stand up and shake, basically. And I thought that'd be quite easy and fun to do, because that's what I do when I go to concerts, So
White people dancing.
The whole
you
mass
said
hysteria.
white people dancing.
Yeah, that'd be me. Yeah,
I'm
it's
doing
the
it
whole
now.
mass hysteria. Basically, you get into that flow and you don't even realize that you're reverting back to something that you gave up 20, 25 years ago. And
Yeah.
I catch myself doing it. You get me on a certain topic and I just go. I don't even think about what I'm saying. I just go.
Did you see Mark's comment?
And, that's what.
Jews invented dancing, by the way.
No, you didn't. Now you're just lying.
Okay, Mark, is there anything that Jews didn't invent?
You know who he sounds like? He sounds like Chekhov on Star Trek.
Well, we're all from Africa, so
True.
that's where it all started.
Yeah.
Jews dancing.
Okay, now you've gone too far, Mark. Jews did not invent dancing.
But they invented everything else.
Yeah, everything else has been fine up to this point.
What's that song? Avalakita?
Yeah, that's the one. La 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 la.
Fiddler on the Roof. I'm sorry.
Started. I have to ban you from my shows now, Mark. I don't know.
Yeah.
He controls the media. You can't ban him, Deb. He's always watching.
Is the Bible a lie? Actually, there's a question, and like Bible comes from like the word like bibliograph or whatever the heck, and it just means book.
Yeah.
So it's a book.
Yeah.
And how do you guys feel when you hear people say, well, the Bible says this and the Bible says that, and I know mentally I just go, who cares?
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it's just a stupid book.
I just usually throw Hesiogyny out. It has
you throw what out?
Hesiogyny.
I have no idea what that is.
Hesiod's story of creation. It's Greek mythology.
Oh, okay.
But it has no more relevance than that, or Shakespeare, or
right.
The only thing.
Harry Potter's a book. It must be true.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's true. That's good. That's a good one. I'll remember that.
Yeah.
Yesterday, or not yesterday, the day before, what the word Quran means, and it just means recitation, because the Quran created reciting large swaths of poetry was a culture.
Okay.
And so the early years, Quran was just recited, like people memorized it, and it was never
right. And I think in the Celtic culture as well, pre-Christianity and presumably pre-Bible, or at least certainly pre-certain parts of it, the tradition was oral. So you just sit down and some guy goes, now I'm going to tell you a story. Are you all sitting comfortably? Right, let's begin. And you just sit there and listen to this guy tell stories, but they had some significance, you know. And there might be a creation story in there, there might not. Who cares? Who knows? But you were entertained, at least. Nothing written down. Good. No words.
I just thought that was funny that it was like, what does Quran mean? I'm like, I never even thought about what Quran means. It's like, oh, recitation. Oh, okay.
No, that's a good one. That's a good one. I have no idea.
Think about it though. Most of your believers of Islam, if you don't know the Quran in Arabic, then you don't know nothing.
Oh, really? Okay.
And basically to them, they can recite you the Quran in Arabic, but they have no fucking clue what it means.
I know actors that can recite Shakespeare. Does that mean that? Okay. I won't.
Exactly.
I won't finish that thought.
Well, put it this way: the largest country of like Muslim majority country in the world is actually Indonesia. And you have to go about 5 countries down before you get an Arabic country that's Muslim majority as far as population size goes. So the vast majority of, what is it? Because I was watching a video with my friend Armin last night, and he says it's roughly about 20% of Muslims actually speak and understand Arabic. But vast majority of them will try to memorize the entire Quran in Arabic. So they can, like, if you say, you know, tell me Quran 434, they could say it to you in Arabic, but they wouldn't actually know what those words were that they were saying.
It reminds me of the Middle Ages and people learning Bible passages in Latin and not knowing what they meant.
It's exactly.
I've had Jehovah's Witnesses do that as well. They would come, and I would always invite them in because I felt sorry for them. And then we'd start chatting away about anything, random stuff, nothing to do with the Bible. And then suddenly the conversation would change in an instant. Oh, that reminds me, there's a passage here in the Bible, and strangely enough, this girl was able to actually point to something that had some relevance to what we've been talking about, which was quite an impressive feat to know the Bible so well. Personally, I couldn't be bothered. You know, I mean, Harry Potter would have just as much relevance as far as I'm concerned, you know, and I didn't even read that much.
Now, Scientology is slipping in this because the Jehovah's Witnesses, they actually have an app for their door-to-door stuff.
Do they? Oh.
Yes. It was 2 summers ago. I had 2 young ladies come to the door, and it was a summer, so I stayed out in the porch and talked with them for quite a while. And they had an app that they could pull up certain Bible verses, and they're like, oh, well, would you mind watching this 3-minute video? And they had a video queued up that talked about their point and everything. I was like, wow, that's kind of slick. It's still bullshit.
The last ones to call left me with a DVD that I haven't watched yet. But you know, I want to ask you this question. You've heard of Chris Shelton, right?
Oh yes, I watched him.
Right. Okay. Chris showed me a link to this guy, and tell me if you've seen him. But he was at some place anyway, and he just walks up to people with his camera and says, oh, hi, you don't mind if I make a quick film, do you? I just talk to people at random. I ask a few questions, takes about 5 minutes. It's about beliefs. And they usually say yes.
Sounds like.
And he starts off by saying, oh, do you believe in God? And they go, yes. After 5 minutes, just by questioning, the person begins to doubt everything that they thought they believed in. And it's a fabulous thing. Now, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he's on YouTube doing it. Who is it?
That sounds like Ray Comfort.
Oh, no.
That's one of his shticks.
That sounds like him, actually. That sounds like the name. I'd need to check with Chris what the guy's name is. But it was fabulous to see it. And if you can do that in 5 minutes just by asking questions, then yeah, bring it on.
But it sounds like there's a bit of presuppositionalist thrown in there, because presuppositionalists like to get you to question what you actually.
You got it what?
Do I have it backwards?
I think Pete, though, he's talking people out of believing God, right?
Oh, he is. Yeah, yeah. He starts off by saying, "Do you believe in God?" And they say, "Yes."
Oh, okay.
They say, "Yes, I believe in God." And he does. He's not at all nasty. It's all done conversationally, and he just simply asks questions.
Several people that do that. I'm thinking it might be Anthony Magnabosco.
Yeah.
Could be.
I think so. Yeah, he does the street epistemology stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
all
wearing
a baseball hat.
I've never seen the guy himself because all I could see was the person he was talking to. But it was very impressive. Very impressive.
That might be him, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it's like Ray Comfort, but in reverse, like done properly.
What does Ray Comfort do?
I think
Ray Comfort is a young Earth creationist
from right.
Zealand, and he goes around to people trying to convince them that they're all evil sinners and need Jesus.
Yeah, by asking questions, but his questions are really dumb, and his analogies are awful.
Okay.
Yeah. He's like,
"Are you entertaining?"
When the person says, "Well, yes, of course I'm a good person," then it says,
"Banana Man."
Yeah, the Banana Man. He's the guy who did the whole spiel about how the banana was proof of God because the banana is perfectly designed for people. It's like, but people designed the banana. We did that on purpose.
Yeah, I don't like bananas, so you know.
Much either, but the banana we see today was genetically engineered to be that way from what it started out as on purpose. So he's sitting there going, like, you know, it doesn't have any seeds and it's great and it fits in your hand and all this. It's like, yeah, because we made it that way. Duh. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so he's known as the Banana Man. But anyway, we're coming up on the end of our time here already, folks.
No way.
Yeah, I know. So, Pete, have you got any other closing comments or anything you wanted to mention before we go?
I don't think so. I'm glad to see 3 years court cases come to an end. I'm glad to know that I can protest without the threat of arrest. Obviously, as long as I keep my nose clean and don't do anything stupid. But yeah, that's my plan. I think in addition to everything we've talked about, I think another... I don't like to use the word weapon, but a tool that we can use is humor. I think even Scientologists enjoy a good laugh. And I know we've had situations, especially, I don't know if you saw the video where all the balloons were used, the little alien balloons, and even the Scientologists could not stop laughing. I certainly couldn't. So humor's the thing. And John Sweeney says the same thing as well, that humor is something that we can all agree on, and hopefully, you know, let's have more humor.
Oh, for sure. In fact, now that you mention that, if I go to that protest in 3 weeks, maybe I'll have to find me an alien balloon to take with.
Oh, do you can buy them from Amazon. You can get little 5-inch alien balloons. Now, if you know somebody with helium, and you can get them on little strings so they float. And then when you finish, just release them or something. But don't get fined for littering.
Yeah, no, I want to do that.
I'm going to throw a very strange birthday party.
Yeah. I got to think about that now. Mm-hmm.
Go on. Is there more to
that? Yeah, go.
Is that it?
Strange birthday party, Morgan. That's it.
Other uses for alien balloons? I don't know. I can get creative, but yeah. We'll see.
I have to forgive her. She wrote one of her first finals today. So.
Oh, cool. Oh, wow. Cool. Does that mean that you're going to pass and be a lawyer?
We'll see. I hope so.
Well,
I graduated.
I do wish you the very best. Because
thank you.
If I ever need a lawyer in your part of the world, I'll come and look you up.
Oh, thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Pete. We appreciate it, especially.
Hey, not at all. It's always fun to go beyond the trailer park.
Yes, exactly.
Where is beyond the trailer park, by the way?
Well, my end of the beyond the trailer park is in Ontario, Canada, but their end Pennsylvania and Mississippi, and our co-host who's beyond the weather, she's under the weather tonight. She's in Maine.
Okay. Under the weather.
Trailer park is quite large.
Park. Yeah, obviously, yeah. No, it's been a pleasure, Deb and Morgan and Beth. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'll probably find I can't sleep now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's only 2:30 in the morning. Come on.
I know. You said you had another interview in the morning, though. So.
I do in about 8 hours. 8 hours, but that's okay. That's okay.
Better go to bed then.
I'll try. I'm all pumped up though. It's like if you do a gig or if you come off stage or something, you're all pumped up. When I worked in a bar, it was the same thing.
Yeah, Tuesdays were always rough for me because I have to work. And when we had our later shows, I'd be up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, which has been kind of an issue. But at least now I have, when I wind down, at least it's only 2 o'clock instead of 5.
Okay, I need to wind down. That's what I need. And then I'll be fine.
There you go. Read the Quran. That'll knock you out in a hurry.
Listen to the assists lecture.
Oh.
That guy's voice is like, I don't know how anybody could listen to ours now.
Perfect.
Oh shit! Morgan, where do we? Pete, is there any? Do you have any websites or anything you want to plug before we?
Well, we have one called ex-Scientologist Island.net. We also have ex-Scientologist.co.uk, but that's all Ireland and UK based. I'd just like to plug the usual ones, the Xenu.net, the TonyOrtega.org, and wish everybody a merry trailer park.
Thank you. Mind shoot some of those links, then I can put them in the show description too, please.
Say that again.
If you could shoot me some of those links in private.
Okay. Does that need to be right now? Because I have a dead brain right now.
No, you can do it later, but I just want to put show notes later. That's okay.
I shall do that. Yeah.
And Morgan, where do we find you?
All right. Well, you can catch me on the Bi Skeptical podcast with Trav Mamone, and you can catch that about every 2 weeks on iTunes, Spreaker, and Stitcher. And then you can also follow me on Twitter at Mostring. That's MOSTRING. And then on Facebook, Morgan L. Stringer.
Wow,
awesome.
That's very succinct.
Yeah, I've got it narrowed down into a three-parter.
And Beth, where do we find you?
Easy way is on Twitter, Dune998. That connects to both Facebook and my blog, which is Beth A. Hambridge for Facebook and YouTube, although I haven't attended out in a while. And my blog is Havoc and Chaos, and I've been posting 7 and 10 stories of our lovely religionists above and beyond the law in molesting children and
sorry for laughing.
harming other people.
Are you on Facebook as well?
That's the easiest way to find me.
Yeah, Beth A. Hambridge.
On Facebook?
Yes. The A. Yes. Without the A, you'll end up with, I don't know what anymore. I haven't looked in a while.
Well, I just found... we're already friends, Beth, obviously, yeah. I just found Morgan.
Yeah, we're friends.
Yeah, and sent her a friend request, so...
Hey. And Tracy, who's not feeling well tonight, she is also known as the Godless Mama, and that's the name of her blog, the Godless Mama, and you can find her on Twitter under that as well, and definitely check out her stuff too. And next week, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we are going to get Corvus Nocturnum to come back and talk to us, because we were kind of hoping to do that. There's a number of people we're excited to learn more about the Church of Satan, so we're glad that he's able to come back and do that next week. So
I'd like to learn more about that. Yeah.
Oh, you should come and listen, Pete.
I might just do that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very intelligent fellow, and he professionally and That's kind of his job, is PR for the Church of Satan. So he's the guy to learn it from, for sure.
Okay, I'm just curious. I don't want to become a member or anything. Do they do personality tests?
No. No. Definitely not.
Okay, just asking.
No problem. I don't think they require you to pay for learning anything either. Thankfully.
It's like, which flavor ice cream are you?
Yeah.
Fun little personality test.
And of course, you can always find me on you can always find me on Holy Crap, the Vlogcast, which airs at Sunday mornings at 12:05 a.m. And that's holycrapthevlogcast.com. And that's with our host, Shujin Tribble, and our motley cast of whomever's awake at that hour. Well, we have one panelist, Pete, who's in Paris, France. So he has to get up at ridiculous stupid in the morning to join us, which you can relate to. So yeah, I should be there. Oh, this week I probably won't be there because I have a birthday party to go to, but go watch it anyway. 12:05 a.m. on YouTube. Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. And a quick note, as I always like to do before we head out, is talk about the Whitefields Educational Foundation. They provide counseling for people who have left or leaving religion. And they have a thing called the Taylor Scholarship, which provides funding for people who would like to speak to a counselor but can't afford to do so. And that was started by David Michael of the My Book of Mormon podcast. So the URL is whitefieldseducational.org/My Book of Mormon podcast. And that's definitely a worthy cause if you want to go and throw a few dollars their way. We recommend them. And we do have a Patreon of our own, which we use to pay for our Spreaker hosting. And if you feel like throwing us $1 or $2, we would always appreciate that as well. Because unfortunately, hosting is not free. But anyway, we'll be back again next week talking to Corvus, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And until then, I will leave you all with our Humanist Creed from friend of the show, David Foda, and we'll see you all next week.
I know the truth and power of reason and of rational thinking, and I will use them to my advantage. I know the truth and power of educating myself and of expanding my intellectual boundaries, and I will educate myself. I know the truth and power of vanquishing ignorance, and I will do so whenever the opportunity presents itself. I know the truth and power of morality without supervision, and of true and accurate righteousness. I know the truth and power of obliterating tyranny, be it intellectual, emotional, or philosophical, and will work toward that goal whenever and however possible. I know the truth and power of human ingenuity. I know the truth and power of human compassion, and I will be mindful of the welfare of others. I know the truth and power of equality and fairness for all living things. I know the truth and power of the importance of our families, our friends, and our fellow men and women. I know the truth and power of human stewardship of our lands, our waters, and our skies, and I will try to act to preserve our environment. I know the truth and power of the sciences of mathematics, of physics, and of chemistry, and of the important role of these disciplines in understanding the workings of this cosmos. I know the truth and power of the rejection of all notions or beliefs that reside in the supernatural or the superstitious, and of those notions or beliefs that we are not supposed to be able to explain. And I know that these rejections are necessary for humankind's survival. I am a human being with a free mind, liberated from irrational influence and from unreasonable dogma.